My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. Weigh-ins are over, so UFC 273 is set. I'm going to break down the entire UFC 273 fight card. I'm going to talk about how those fights are going to go. I'm going to give you my picks, and we're going to talk about who is worth or not worth their DraftKings price tag. Before I jump in, go to WeWantPicks.com/DraftKings. We have a free DraftKings league. It literally costs you nothing to join, nothing to play, but it's a ton of fun. You get to compete against us and the community. So check that out at WeWantPicks.com/DraftKings. And before I break down this card and we do updated breakdowns based on what's happened throughout the week, let's talk about weigh-ins. Two people missed weight. The fights are not off, but two people missed weight. Hansen missed weight by 2.5 pounds. She actually didn't look that bad. You know, it's not like she looked like she was going to die if she continued to cut, but for whatever reason, she didn't continue to cut. She missed weight by 2.5 pounds. The fight is still on, and she's fighting Pichel Rodriguez. We'll break down that fight in a little bit. I'm already on the Pichel Rodriguez side. This only helps that case, especially because Hansen is a grappler, and that's pretty exhausting. And to be this sucked out, miss weight by 2.5 pounds, that can't really be helping her. And Julio Arce missed weight by 0.5 pound. Not that big of a deal, but it's always surprising to me when somebody misses weight by that little. If you miss weight by a few pounds, I actually get it, right? Listen, it's not worth the effort to continue cutting. I don't want to do that to myself. But 0.5 pound to stop there means he is completely sucked dry. There is nothing left to give, and he's just stopping. So that can't be good for him. And honestly, that does affect my pick, my breakdown. I do think Julio Arce can win this fight with a couple of well-timed takedowns, but man, he may be pretty sucked out going into that fight. I've already broken down this entire card. So what I'm going to do, we're going to jump in. They have added Olynyk versus Vanderaa. So let's talk about that, and then we'll cut right to the rest of the breakdown. We have the addition of Olynyk and Vanderaa. Vanderaa, a real heavyweight. He's a big guy. His nickname's the Mountain for a reason. And even though he has a grappling background, he's a very high-level jiu-jitsu guy. Not as high-level as Olynyk, but he's a high-level jiu-jitsu guy. And he built his pre-UFC career on his grappling. In the UFC, we really haven't seen it at all. He hasn't taken anyone down. And his losses were actually him getting taken down and beat up. So you might say to yourself, well, he loses when he gets taken down. Olynyk's a grappler. The difference is, though, Olynyk doesn't have very good takedowns. He got very good opportunistic jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't have very good takedowns. But if we look at the stats here, Vanderaa, look at these strike numbers. This is a heavyweight. 121 significant strikes against Justin Tafa. 102 total strikes against Andrei Arlovski. He lost this fight, but that was a split decision, and he actually landed more strikes than Andrei Arlovski did. I like Vanderaa to win this fight. I think his high volume striking, that output will get it done. I think he will just outpoint Olynyk. Olynyk is a nasty jiu-jitsu guy, and he's just super sneaky and can pull that off. And he's a feast or famine kind of guy, honestly. Derek Lewis knocked him out. Dawkins knocked him out. Fine. The dude is going to be 45 years old. But he went to a decision with Spivak, and he actually had some success in that fight. He ended up on mount a few times. He beat Werdum by decision, which was surprising, and that was essentially a striking match. And then obviously he's got a whole bunch of submission wins. I mean, look at this. Almost every single win is by submission. I don't think he's going to outstrike Vanderaa. I think Vanderaa's volume is just too much. I don't think he's going to take down Vanderaa. He does have a wrestling background, and yes, Jared's been taken down a few times in the UFC, but he was taken down by Spivak, who's got very good takedowns, and nasty giant heavyweight Alexander Romanov. Olynyk is not as good of a wrestler as either one of those guys. He'll be significantly smaller than Vanderaa, and Vandera's striking volume is just too much. I think he just lights up Olynyk face for 15 minutes. I do think it probably goes to a decision or close to it. I know a lot of people are saying Olynyk, 45 years old, he's going to get stopped. I don't know if he's going to get stopped, but I do like Vanderaa to win. And we'll look at him again real quick. $8,100, that's literally even money in DraftKings. And if we look at, let's take the Andrei Arlovski fight, and we'll add 30 to it, because that's what he would have gotten if the decision went to his side. That'd be a 69-point victory. You're kind of looking for more than that. You need more than that out of an $8,100 fighter. If you think he'll put away Olynyk because he's aging out at this point, then he's absolutely worth the price tag. But I think Jared Vanderaa wins the fight. I think he's got a ton of volume. I don't know if there's a stoppage there, so he may not be worth it for your lineup. Let's talk about Julio Arce taking on Daniel Santos. Julio Arce, he's a striker. He's got solid volume, good defense, and he's able to come forward with power, but he still counter-strikes really, really well. Nice, versatile offensive attacks with his hands and his feet. He's a good-sized favorite in this matchup at $9,000, a 2-1 favorite on the sportsbook. But if we look at Daniel Santos, he is making his UFC debut, so we don't really have any data here for him. But he is an old school shoot box fighter. And if you don't know what shoot box is, maybe you know who Vanderlei Silva is, right? It is that style. Come in, really high guard, then super aggressive striking style. An aggressive BJJ. The problem with his BJJ, Daniel Santos, it's very good, but it's very old school. He'll lay on his back and look for spider guard and triangles and stuff like that instead of looking to create scrambles and get to his feet. Daniel Santos is very dangerous, hits hard, solid leg attacks. He's very good everywhere. The problem is, I do think Julio Arce is a little bit better. I think if he can work in some takedowns, as he did in this run right here against Dawodu, Erosa, and Marias, I think those takedowns will be the difference here, because if he takes Daniel Santos down, I think Daniel accepts it. He's on his back playing the jiu-jitsu game instead of trying to work back up to his feet. But I am not going to spend $9,000 on Julio Arce because I don't think he's that big of a favorite. I do think he wins, but I think it's a closer fight. And betting-wise, I actually am going to put a bet on Daniel Santos to win inside the distance, decision, no action, because I think those are the only two things that will happen here. I think Daniel Santos can either finish Julio Arce or will lose a decision, and I'm not paying $9,000 with, Julio Arce potentially getting finished or only winning by decision. Then we have another UFC debut. We have Pichel Rodriguez, and she is taking on Kay Hansen. Kay Hansen, she's incredibly young. She made her UFC career, or UFC debut at 20 years old. She's had a decent career so far, but she's got a little bit of a rough stretch. She's lost to Jasmine Jasudavicius back in January. And the reason she lost that fight is because we broke it down, right? Jasmine's hips were just too good in that fight, and Kay lost a lot of those wrestling scrambles. But Kay comes forward. She's got sort of a tight bob and weave boxing style. She'll light you up, put you against the cage, and then take you down. Then she's aggressive on the ground. She's fighting Pichel Rodriguez. Pichel Rodriguez making her UFC debut. She is a nasty striker. She's got very real finishing power. She plots forward and she lets her hands fly. Well, I've been saying this all week. I call it a controlled brawl because she knows exactly what she's doing, but she throws with intent. She puts her hips into it, and it looks like it's wild, but she knows what she's doing. And what I love about Pichel Rodriguez's takedown defense is if you shoot a shot, she throws her hips in, pushes you over, and then just starts pounding away. She's not working on little minor techniques. She literally bullies you to your back. The sports books had Rodriguez as an underdog, and I love her in the underdog spot. And DraftKings has the luxury, they don't come out with their pricing till a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever it is. And they had the luxury of watching the money come in and see what the line does. So Kay Hansen is actually the underdog in this. And I do like Pichel Rodriguez to win this fight. I love her style. As far as DraftKings is concerned, though, I'm not spending, I don't think I can see myself spending $8,300 on her. I do think she wins. But Kay Hansen is stupid tough. She can grapple, and she might actually be worth the $7,900, but I'm not touching either side of that. But again, I do like Pichel Rodriguez here. I think she could do something special going forward in the UFC. Then we have Anthony Fluffy Hernandez taking on Josh Frem. Josh Frem, UFC debut. 3 in a row opening this card. There's more UFC debuts on this card than almost any other pay-per-view I've ever seen. It's pretty surprising, actually. Anyway, Anthony Hernandez was originally supposed to fight Dricus du Plessis. Then they did some shuffling, some moving, and now he's fighting short notice UFC newcomer Josh Frem. Anthony Hernandez sort of built his name. He's been around for a little while, but nobody really knew who he was until this Rodolfo Vieira fight here. He won by submission in the second round, and he scored 94 points. But the reality is what happened was he got pounded on in the first round, taken down a bunch of times, controlled, dominated. But Rodolfo Vieira gassed, and he gassed hard. He was exhausted, could barely stand. I've never seen somebody get as exhausted as Rodolfo Vieira did, where Anthony Hernandez hung tough, had the cardio, continued moving forward, and ended up winning by submission. Great for him, right? It shows how tough he is. He's never out of a fight, and how skilled he is, because Rodolfo Vieira is a world level jiu-jitsu guy. Anthony Hernandez is his own black belt in jiu-jitsu. Decent hands, decent takedowns, but, really jiu-jitsu is where he shines. Josh Frem, he's French, so Josh Frem. He is making his UFC debut on short notice. Good size underdog here, and obviously no data, but he's a grappler, but he's very athletic. He's got some sneaky power in his punches. He had success in the LFA, other than his one single loss to Gregory Rodriguez, who's in the UFC now. He's coming off a win that got him his UFC contract. It's like Contender Series, but not. It's Dana White looking for a fight, where Dana goes to local shows and looks for some people who have talent. So he signed Josh there, and he's coming off a submission win, and it was just a few months ago. What I love about Josh is his athleticism. I talked about this in Quick Picks in detail. When you have somebody that has that much athletic ability, they can grow at a faster pace, improve at a faster pace, do things that somebody who, isn't as athletic potentially can't do in fights. I like Josh Frem. I like his future. And honestly, by the end of this week, I may change my pick. As far as DraftKings is concerned, Josh Frem is probably worth his money more than Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez at $8,700, I do not like it. Both of these guys are grapplers. Anthony Hernandez doesn't have great hands, and he's less athletic. Josh Frem is more athletic, actually has power in his hands. He's knocked some people out, and he's had some success. But I do like Anthony to win this fight, because I think short notice is a factor. The pressure of a UFC debut on a pretty big fight card is a factor. And Anthony Hernandez, at the end of the day, he's got some losses here, but he's also got some solid wins, and he's been in the UFC for a little bit. So I like Anthony Hernandez to win the fight, but I think it's like razor thin, and $8,700 is not razor thin. And Josh Frem and his athletic ability, honestly, he's a pretty live dog on this card. So I'm not touching it. I just broke down, 3 fights, and I don't like any of them, but I promise you we're getting somewhere. Then we've got Vince from Hell Pichel. He's taking on Mark Madsen. Vince Pichel, sick nickname. He's a good striker. He's got a lot of movement, good in and out style, and he has very good offensive wrestling as well. If we scroll down here, look at this. He took down Miller 3 times, Roberts 3 times, but if I keep going, 8 times for Injakwani, 8 times for Whitley. He's got very good offensive wrestling. What these stats are not showing, though, is he has horrendous wrestling defense. He gets taken down, and he gets taken down often. The stats I have here, Gregor Gillespie took him down 7 times, Roosevelt Roberts twice, Jim Miller twice in that fight, Austin Hubbard 4 times. So yes, he has takedowns against people, right? He took Jim Miller down 3 times, Jim Miller took him down twice. He does have offensive takedowns and good offensive wrestling, but he gets taken down. And he's fighting Mark Madsen. Nickname is literally the Olympian, because he is an Olympic Greco-Roman wrestler. And historically, you'd say, he's got bad hands, he's old, his cardio is not great. But he just went 3 rounds with Clay Guida, where there was 0 takedowns. He attempted 1. So anybody who's going to troll and be like, he didn't take Clay Guida down because he couldn't. He only attempted 1 single takedown. The reason he didn't continue to pursue the takedowns is because he didn't need to. He was winning those striking exchanges. He outlanded Clay 98-72, and he won that fight with striking only. And Clay Guida is one of the most mobile guys in the division. His feet are never planted, and that's what Vince Pichel does in his striking style. I think Mark Madsen wins this fight. I think it does actually look a little more like a wrestling match. I think he gets a bunch of takedowns because of how easily Vince Pichel is taken down. But if it stays on his feet, Vince Pichel is definitely the better striker, but Mark Madsen has proven that he's not completely, a fish out of water in that department. So I like Mark Madsen, $7,800. I will probably spend it, especially if we're thinking he's going to get some takedowns and some control time there. Then we've got Mickey Gall taking on a UFC debut, Mike Malott. It's insane how many UFC debuts are on this card. Mickey Gall, we've broken him down many, many times. And the issue with Mickey Gall that I always bring up is, if we look at this here, his second fight in the UFC, his 3rd fight ever, was against CM Punk. And that CM Punk is not good, but that's what got him famous, because he beat CM Punk. And then he beat Sage Northcutt, who turned out to not be that good. But all of a sudden, he's riding a few wins. Wow, 3 wins in the UFC. 2 against quote-unquote names, 1 against a prospect. And then after that, it was win-loss, 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 because all of a sudden he's in the UFC 3 fights into his career, and he's stuck fighting people at that level. He was sort of robbed of the opportunity to learn on the regional scene, evolve on the regional scene. He's suddenly in the UFC fighting only UFC caliber. Skill-wise, he's a pretty good wrestler, but he's got very good grappling. He can submit you on top or on bottom. And his hands are okay. And look at his losses. They're not bad. Alex Morono's a very good fighter. He scored, didn't score great, but it was a 3-round decision. He landed some significant strikes. Mike Perry, listen, Mike Perry is a tough outing for anybody. Because he will stand there, he will bomb away, he hits hard as hell, and he's going absolutely nowhere. But the difference is, the point I'm making here is his opponent, Mike Malott, he's not fighting the Mike Perrys of the world, the Alec Moronos of the world. So, of course, he's got a pretty good record because he's not fighting that level of competition. Mike Malott is a pretty well-rounded guy. He's got a loose striking style, so that allows him to box and kickbox. He flows very nicely with his striking. He does keep his hands low, so he is hittable. And I say he's sort of the next generation of fighter because he's not one thing, right? I said Mickey Gall is a grappler. Mike Malott is not. He's nothing. He's everything. However you want to word that. His family is full of professional athletes. His brother is a professional hockey player, so he's an athletic guy. He can wrestle, he can grapple, he can strike. But I do think experience matters quite a bit here. I like Mickey Gall. I think Mike Malott, maybe, I don't want to say frozen by the moment, but it's a big moment for him. Mickey Gall, this is not a big moment for him. He's been in these moments many times. And if anything, this is one of the most favorable matchups that Mickey Gall has gotten recently. A UFC debut who's sort of unproven. So I like Mickey Gall to win here. $7,400. He's probably worth it. Because look at this. He scored 106 points in this win over Williams, where he was also a big-time underdog. Then we have Aspen Ladd versus Raquel Pennington. So Aspen Ladd was originally supposed to fight Irene Aldana. Aldana dropped. So then she got Raquel Pennington on short notice. Aspen Ladd's very good, but I had her losing her original matchup. I thought Irene Aldana would beat her because if we look at how Aspen Ladd lost to Norma Dumont, she came back after a 2-year layoff, so there was a little bit of rust there, and she was a step behind in the striking. Norma Dumont was able to piece her up on the outside, just a step ahead of her with every single punch thrown. Raquel Pennington doesn't fight that way. Raquel Pennington, let's pull her up here. Raquel Pennington, outside of this stoppage over Macy Chasson, which, she got a submission. She's exciting. Let's scroll down. Decision. This KO was a loss. Decision. She didn't get a win. That was her first win since 2015. That was by stoppage. And my point here is that Raquel Pennington's style is to work you against the cage, hold you there, potentially get a takedown, and just grind out minutes. And Aspen Ladd is not the type of person that will just let you grind her out against the cage. She is a dog. And she will not allow that to happen. Raquel Pennington's a massive favorite in this fight as far as the sportsbooks are concerned. I picked her to dominate Macy. I love Raquel Pennington. And to work against my case here, look at her losses. She has literally only lost to champions. Holly Holm, champion. Nunes, champion. Durandamy, champion. Back down to Holly Holm again, and Andrade. All of them are champions. She has literally only lost 2 champions. She's basically been the number 2 in the world forever, her top 5 in the world forever. And nobody outside of the champion, maybe they weren't champion at that time, but nobody outside of the champions in these divisions have beaten Raquel Pennington. And there's something to be said about that. And she's fighting on short notice, and that doesn't really matter because Tisha Torres is fighting on this card, and they live together. Their girlfriend, and obviously they're training together like absolute crazy. So I have to imagine Raquel Pennington is in shape, ready to go, and she's this skilled. But styles make fights, and I do think that Aspen Ladd is enough of a dog to stay off the cage, avoid the bullying. I don't think Pennington is going to be stronger. I don't think she'll be faster. I don't think she'll hit harder. What she will have is a wealth of experience that Aspen doesn't. I do think I like Aspen to win this fight, though. So she may be in my lineup. She's pretty affordable. We'll see how that fleshes out. But I like Aspen Ladd to win this. You guys are going to hate on me for it. Maybe I'm a simp for Aspen Ladd, but I did pick against her in her last fight. And I picked against her with her original opponent. I've just sort of changed my tune once they added Raquel Pennington. And we move right over to the heavyweights. We've got Rozenstruik taking on Tybura. Rozenstruik, big, heavy-handed striker. But he's a counter striker, so he can fall behind on the scorecards and then catch right back up with a big punch here or there. But he is a heavy-handed striker. He's not very good on the ground. He does not have much to offer if he's taken down. What I did like in the Augusta Sakai fight is he was moving forward. One of the very few fights where he was actually moving forward. Outside of that, he waits for you to come to him, so he can be a low-volume guy. Marcin Tybura, he's a heavyweight grappler. He's a grinder. He's not nearly as good of a grappler as Curtis Blaydes, but he will come forward. He'll hold you against the cage. He'll bully you to the ground, and he's looking to grind you out. I think Marcin Tybura wins this fight. I think he gets a few takedowns. I think he works up quite a bit of control time. So I like Tybura to win. He does have some chin issues, or at least he has in the past. So he absolutely needs to avoid some of those big strikes. He just went the decision with Volkov. And the issue is because he couldn't take Volkov down because Marcin Tybura doesn't shoot takedowns. He's not Curtis Blaydes. He doesn't lower his level, shoot to the hips, and finish. He works up top. He tries to drag you down, push you against the cage. That's not going to work against somebody like Volkov. That will work against Rozenstruik. So I like Marcin Tybura to win this fight. $7,600 is a great price tag. And then we've got the main card. We've got Ian Garry taking on Darian Weeks. It's an interesting fight here because Ian Garry is a massive favorite, and I don't think he should be. I do think Ian Garry wins. But here's the thing. We just watched him in his UFC debut, and you might say, wow, he knocked out Williams in the first round. That's amazing. But watch the fight. He is hittable. He got hit a lot. He's pretty hittable. He showcased some of his sort of technical inadequacies. He's not as technical as you would like him to be at $9,200 is where I'm going with that. He was hittable, but he does have hands. He can hit hard, and he has good offense. It's his defense that's lacking a little bit. But he's fighting Darian Weeks, and Darian Weeks is super dangerous because he's a very good wrestler. He can get a lot of takedowns, as he did against Bryan Barberena in his UFC debut. And he landed 118 significant strikes against Bryan Barberena. But he was also hit 108 times himself. And Ian Garry hits pretty freaking hard. And if Ian Garry hits you 108 times, that could be a problem. So I think Darian Weeks loses this fight. But $7,000, he's a very good wrestler. He hits hard and he's very athletic. He's a good, well-rounded fighter. Ian Garry, we've seen how hittable he is. A lot of people are trying to compare Ian Garry to Conor McGregor. That's just because they're both Irish. Skill-wise, it's ridiculous to make that comparison. Because Conor McGregor, he's a little bit washed up now that he's made the money that he's made. But like when he was up and coming, nobody said Conor McGregor's hittable. You couldn't touch the guy, and he was flatlining people. So Ian Garry's got a little Paddy Pimblett in him in that he's touchable. But I do think Ian Garry wins this fight, but $7,000, Darian Weeks is not a bad play because, guys, you will need underdogs in your lineup this week. We have so many fighters well over $9,000. Just look at the main, co-main, and feature fight. Those pricing is ridiculously wide, and every single one of you should have at least two of those people in your lineup. And in order to afford that, you need some inexpensive guys. Darian Weeks at $7,000 is probably the best. I mean, I think he loses. He's probably going to be in my lineup, honestly. Then we move over to Mackenzie Dern. We all know how I feel about Mackenzie Dern. A, her accent is freaking stupid. It's fake. It's absurd. Just Google Mackenzie Dern accent. There's a video, I shared it, called The Evolution of Mackenzie Dern's Accent. The video starts with her being like, hi, I'm Mackenzie Dern. I love jiu-jitsu. I'm from Arizona. And by the end of it, she literally needed a translator last year. A translator. A kid that grew up in Arizona needs a translator as an adult. She didn't need it 3 years ago. Suddenly needs a translator. It is one of the most absurd things I have ever seen. I don't know why it bothers me as much as it does, but it's ridiculous. With that being said, she's phenomenal at jiu-jitsu. Unbelievable at jiu-jitsu. But here's my second rant. She has miserable wrestling. She has 10% takedown accuracy. She can't take anybody down when she needs to. So now we have somebody that can only win the fight on the ground. that struggles to get it on the ground. It blows my mind that somebody as talented as her, that is as amazing as she is at jiu-jitsu, isn't just day in and day out working the one technique that she needs to make that jiu-jitsu worth it. Because I don't care how good your hands are, like there'll never be knockout power good. And she's stupid tough. She's not going to get stopped. And I guarantee she's spending all of her time boxing and grappling and not wrestling. And that's what she needs to do. Spoiler alert, Tecia Torres wins this fight. $8,000. Tecia Torres will probably be in my lineup. The reason I say probably, so I have a 2-unit bet on Tecia Torres to win. As far as DraftKings is concerned, my only issue is Mackenzie Dern is stupid tough. Stupid tough. So I don't see Tecia Torres getting a stoppage. She's also not going to get a takedown. Why the hell are you going to take down Mackenzie Dern? That's stupid. So I think she just wins a decision that's basically a kickboxing match, and that's 71 points, right? If we look at Van Buren, what she did there. She's not going to stop her. She got the takedown against Hill. You want to take 5 off that, but there was control time. You know, I love Tecia Torres. I absolutely think she wins this fight. We'll see what the pricing looks like with DraftKings as far as if she'll be in my lineup or not. But guys, Mackenzie Dern, she's got to make the wrestling adjustments. I want to eat my words. I want to see Mackenzie Dern show up on Saturday and just blast double through Tecia Torres and have evolved, because I love how dangerous she is on the ground. The problem is there's no reason to go there. Then we have what is probably the most highly anticipated fight on this card. I'm more excited for this fight than I am for the next two. We have Khamzat Chimaev taking on Gilbert Burns, by far the toughest fight of his career. Chimaev only has 4 fights in the UFC, 4 total. He has been hit 1 single time in 4 fights. It's absolutely absurd. He has decimated all 4 of these people. I said the reality is, though, none of them are really ranked in the top 10. For some reason, Jing Lang has an army of people that want to come and be, he was ranked 10th when they fought. The guy sucks. I'm sorry. I manage professional fighters. I hate saying any professional fighter sucks, but you guys have driven me to be that extreme. You attacked me in the comments when I was like, none of Khamzat's opponents can really sniff the top 10. And at least 20 of you, Jing Lang. Dude, he's not good. And if he's in the top 10, he shouldn't be. He's definitely not now. He's 13th now, I think. And rankings are subjective. You guys are presenting it like it's fact. These are just random people on the internet that vote, and that's the rankings. These aren't facts. The facts are Jing Lang has a couple of losses in his last 5, and he got smoked. Khamzat picked him up, had full conversations with people, dumped him, and submitted him. He's not very good, and this breakdown is not about him. My point is, he's fighting Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is ranked, I don't know, what is he, 3rd, 5th, something like that. Gilbert Burns is legitimately ranked in the top 5, and he earned that ranking. He smoked Stephen Thompson in a grapple-heavy match. Smoked Woodley in a grapple-heavy match. He did knock out Damian Maia, smoked Nelson. I mean, look at this. Look at these wins. He lost to Dan Hooker, and this is before Dan Hooker was a little washed up. But the problem here is styles make fights, and Gilbert Burns needs to take you down to win. That's just how he fights. He has some power in his hands. He showed everybody he did when he wobbled Usman. But Usman engages the striking. I think Khamzat freaking takes him down immediately and blows right through him. Yeah, I think you have to have Khamzat in your lineup. Gilbert Burns, I love the matchup for Chimaev because it's going to be a really good win over a very highly ranked opponent, but I don't think Gilbert Burns is dangerous. I actually think there's people ranked below him that are far more dangerous than Gilbert Burns, because styles make fights, and Gilbert Burns is not going to take down Chimaev, and now he's going to be stuck defending takedowns. And I was texting with Jacob about this today. If you watch Gilbert Burns, there's video on him training guillotines. Like, I'm going to get taken down. Let me just try to guillotine real quick. A Hail Mary submission is not a proper technique. Co-main event, we've got Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. You guys remember this fight. It's a rematch, and you probably remember that Petr Yan was dominating Aljamain Sterling, and then the illegal knee, and Sterling took the easy way out. The stats tell a different story. Aljamain Sterling won the first round. Aljamain Sterling won the second round. He won 2 rounds in what was only a 4-round fight. Yes, Petr turned the table. The tide shifted. He was landing the more significant strikes, even though Sterling outstruck him. He was volume-wise, not, Jan landed the more meaningful strikes, but it was like 86 to, let me see, what do I have here? I have the stats. It was 97 to 86 significant strikes. So he was outstruck. But Piotr went 7 for 7 on takedowns. Aljamain went like 1 for 15. The biggest issue in that fight was Aljamain gassed, and he gassed hard. Very hard. And in this fight, if Aljamain has the gas tank to fight like he did in the first round and the second round, he can win this fight. I still think he loses, though. I think Piotr Jan is more of the same. I think he gives up the first round early, but he's got a gas tank. He hits hard. His wrestling is fantastic because you don't really even expect him to wrestle. So I think Piotr Jan wins this fight again. But I would say if you can only afford 2 of the big 3, between him, Volkanovski, and Chimaev, leave him out. Go Volkanovski and Chimaev because I think Aljamain Sterling is the most live of all 3 of them. All 3 of those big underdogs to get it done. I mean, he scored 119 points. Granted, there's technically a stoppage win here, but he had a takedown. He had a reversal. 3.5 minutes of control time and 97 significant strikes. Even if he was stopped right then and there, stopped, knocked out, stopped, he scored well. Like he scored legitimately well in that fight. So, sorry, 99, not 119. He scored pretty well in that fight. So, I'm not saying Aljamain's going to win. I'm just saying this is a weird card with a couple of massive, look at these 9,000 pricing. A couple of massive favorites here. You need some underdogs, and he might be one of them. And you need to avoid, which of these over 9,000 fighters do I have in my lineup? Piotr Jan is probably not the one that I will. Then we've got Volkanovski taking on the Korean Zombie. Volkanovski, we've seen him fight Max Holloway about 11 times now. He's coming off an awesome win over Brian Ortega, and he puts up real numbers because he works in the wrestling. He can grapple. He can strike. He's high volume, high pace, never stops moving forward. Very well-rounded guy. He's fighting the Korean Zombie, who is really coming off 1 win in a row. Ortega, that was a pretty one-sided loss for Korean Zombie. And before that, he's very inactive. So he did have to take 2 years off to serve in the military. And he's got some solid wins earlier in his career, right? Like these are solid wins. Garcia, Hominick, Poirier. Lost to Aldo, beat Dennis Bermudez, lost to Rodriguez, but Moicano, Edgar. Those are solid wins, but 2019. Fought once in 2020. Once in 2021 against an unranked Dan Ige. And he won that fight. He looked good. Is exactly what he's supposed to do. But, I don't think Korean Zombie wins this fight. He's a dangerous guy. He's got some power in his hands, but we've seen him lose almost this exact fight. I think Volkanovski stays in his face, closes the distance, stupid volume, works in some takedowns. I think Volkanovski wins. Volkanovski should be in your lineup. So should Chimaev. And then from there, grab some underdogs that you think can get it done. Guys, WeWantPicks.com/DraftKings. Join the free league. It's free. Join the free league. Participate. Compete against us. Compete against the rest of the community. Like, subscribe, do all the things. And we'll see you later this week for even more analysis.